Last time we start talking about the basics of augmented reality, and we talked about several features that the platforms or the frameworks that supports AR. If you guys can remember, we have AR Core for Android and AR Kit for iOS. Among these two, we'll be learning the things with AR Core, but um, the similarities and things which are with the two framework, it's going to be something similar. So, uh, so we will be having, even though we talk about everything in AR Core, most of the concepts that we are talking relatively available on ARKit as well. So we talked about things such a framework support. First thing is motion tracking, environmental understanding, light estimation. These are like the key features that AR framework supports, or at least they gives us helps with. So it's going to be easy for us to generate. It will be easy for us to create an AR application rather than from the scratch. We don't have to think about at least these complex tasks. We have upper hand on getting the requirement done rather than thinking how it is done. Okay. Right. So we talked about a few other things in here as well, which is related to the things that we should know about when we are talking in terms of in terms of AR application. So these are like the base points or base things that we should know. The first thing is that we should know what a feature point is. Okay, so the feature point is gonna be acting as like what are the different different items, objects that is visually distinguished things, and how these visually distinguished things is detected by the AR core. So feature points is like the things that we get from the visually distinct features, and these features uh, uh, these features that uh, these features, the image captured by the AR camera is what we call a feature point. Okay, so it should be as I shown in the earlier lecture. These feature points should not be something that will be there in a repetitive manner. Okay, because repetitive features is hard to detect, and it's gonna cause a lot of errors. But as long as the features are unique and they are distinguishable from each other, then it's easy for the AR core framework to have these distinct feature points in its memory or in its framework in order to work with. So AR Core uses these feature point with combination with device sensors to figure out the location in the space and the estimate of the pose. Okay, so these feature points is playing a key role in terms of when we are detecting where the object is in the space. The space is where we are pointing our camera at. So in this space, we should have a good idea uh, what are the feature points that we are having, and are those feature points giving us a good idea on this. All right. Next thing would be a pose. Okay, a pose is, as the description say, I'll read out the description first and try to go with it an explanation. Okay, ARCO uses pose to refer the position and the orientation of the camera. It needs to align the pose of the virtual camera with the pose of the device camera, so the virtual object are rendered from the correct perspective. This allows user to place virtual objects on top of a plane, circle around it, and watch it from the behind. So as I think um, when we use the applications in this scenario, a pose is as mentioned is the orientation of the camera. Okay, so when we have a virtual object um, space in the space, what we need to do is that the object facing the camera is something that we should be worried about. So if we pose if we have object that is posing let's say directly at a wall, okay, and when we go around the virtual object, it should not change the pose. That pose is like it is posing at it is looking at the wall that we have. When we go around it, the 3D object should not change its rotation, direction, or anything. It should keep focusing on the wall while we are rotating around it. Okay, so even if we go behind the virtual object, we should see the backside. If we go in front of the object, it should show the front. So whatever the pose that we are having, it should it should not it should not like have the um, it should not have the changes in the direction or the orientation that we are having. So it is not acceptable. So in this scenario, what we'll see these the application that we'll be creating, or at least application that we'll be demonstrating, will have different poses. We'll see how these virtual objects act when we change the camera. Okay. So next thing is one most important thing is the plane. Okay. So let me read the description and let's get an understanding of what it serves. So when processing the camera from input stream, apart from the features, points, and ARCO also looks into horizontal surface like tables, desks, or floors. Those directed surfaces are called planes. So we'll see how you can use the planes with anchors and virtual objects on the scene. So it's basically a plane is something like a surface, whether it is horizontal or vertical. Whatever the plane that we have, it's gonna have uh, it's gonna have a vertical or a horizontal area which is not cluttered with anything else other than the whole surface. For example, if you take a floor, you can see some stuff on the floor, and if you take a table, you might have a plain floor where it may contain something something like a coffee cup or sometimes a book. Okay, sometimes even it will contain no objects at all, no physical objects at all, but the plain desk itself. Okay, so ARCO is able to detect these things, and we will see how these things are like working in real life. All right. Um, okay, and the next one is anchors, or we call anchor points. For virtual objects to be placed, it need to be attached to an anchor. An anchor describes a fixed location or and the orientation in the real world. By attaching a virtual object to an anchor, we create AR to track the position and the orientation correctly over time. The anchor is created as a result of heat test when tapping on the screen. So an anchor is one of the most important things when we talk about the AR applications. So when we are creating with the AR applications, it's really important that the anchors that we put in place are um, to have uh, the position in the space. Okay, so when we want to place a virtual object, what happens in there is like uh, we will have uh, the virtual object bounded to that anchor. So we can have pretty much any space, and within that space we can click on a surface. So once we click on that surface, what will happen is the uh, the AR framework will put an anchor. So that is like a unique point of view for the application. Once the anchor is placed on, once the anchor is placed on, what we can do is we can once the uh, anchor take its place in the whole space, it will um, place the virtual object on there. And not only the space, not only the what we call the space that we are talking in here, we need to consider the fact that the angle or the orientation in the real world is something that we need to also consider when placing an anchor. Okay, the anchors will take into a place the space, orientation, and a lot of information which related to the virtual objects that we are going to put. So in this scenario, uh, in these cases, what we need to know all about is these feature point, posts, planes, and anchors. Rather than talking in code, what we can do is we can sorry, we can see the actual um, implementation, something like this. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is uh, think about the feature points. Okay, the feature points, as you can see, um, feature points are like the unique points that you can see in here. You can see that the application showing me like visually distinct features. In here you have the flow, and there are like this black pot or the flower pot in here. And while we are using these things, you guys can see these are like distinguished. We can distinguish these things easily. Um, so these feature points, as I mentioned, these should be visually distinguishable. Even look at this uh, flow or the wall that we see in here. The wall has this line in between, that is a separation of 90 degrees angle on it. So what will happen in here is that even the two walls that are in this section will have different color shadings. Okay, so these color shades, as you can see, are two different type of, I don't know, it's like yellowish colors. In terms of looking at this wall, we can see there is a difference. So these can be as a feature point as well. So we have a thing in here, the plane, as you guys can see, the area that is like red highlighted, and it shows something like a triangle shapes all around the world. I think we looked at it last time on the phone. So it's gonna show us the plane that we are working with, that the plane that we are supposed to show these things. So so in here, what we can see is that the planes have been detected uh, in a way that we can clearly see the difference or the detection of horizontal plane in here. So as you might have uh, as you might have seen in here, the application that we are having is only detecting vertical flows, not the horizontal one, because it's easy to use to have one single plane. Once this plane is detected, that's the plane that we're going to be placing our virtual objects in. Um, so uh, so in here, what we can do is uh, when we uh, when we look at the application itself, we can see uh, that um, we can see that in the for Androids, the four virtual objects that we have put in. So they are, if you, I'm not sure whether you guys can see it correctly, but let me try to zoom in. Slideshow. So we might have a better, yeah. So you guys can see that the uh, uh, Android bot that we are seeing in here has four different poses. Okay, one is looking at this direction. The other one is also like kind of similar direction to this, and these two are looking at this direction, and one is staring at this flower pot that we are having in here. So those what we call a poses. Okay, the orientation, the uh, the direction of the virtual objects is what we call a pose. So if you put a Android bot in here and try to go around it, they will not change their pose. They will be looking at the direction that they are supposed to look, and at least the direction that we have placed. So um, um, when we have the um, options of rotating around these things, you will probably see these things are not changing that much. And as you guys can see, these four Android with these virtual objects have been anchored in four different location in the application in the flow. Okay, so in here you guys can see the Android bot. One bot is stationed in here, the other one is also stationed near it, and there are two others stationed at each other. And these 4 anchors, you guys can see the anchor location that we have put this within this plane that we are using. So when we look at these application, when we have uh, when we have the when you have these 4 anchor points, uh, while we are moving within this plane, while we are moving this with this plane, it will not change. It will keep uh, it will keep a reference point or anchor point there, and that anchor point will not change unless we change the surface or we close the application and all. The surface will be surface and the anchor point will be remaining as it is. Okay. So next thing that I would like to show you guys, maybe we can develop an AR application, but developing a AR application from ground up, it's gonna take a lot of time and effort. So what we will do is we will take the sample application with Google Play Store, and we will try to run it through, and we'll see what sort of things that we can find in there. Okay. So let me go to the sample application. Terminal. ARCo sample app. So I already have downloaded the ARCo application and I have cloned it. So I will open that one instead. Okay. All right. So I'll share the link for this application. I can share it as of now. Android ARCo Android SDK. So this is the Git repo that we are working with. So if you guys want to like start ARCo, it's better that we take a sample application and look at the sample application, how it is structured and all. It's not going to be easy to build something from ground up, but we will see the key important things that we need to work with the application. Right now I have cloned this application out, and we'll start with the smallest implementation that we can find, that is hello AR Kotlin. Okay, so we have other varieties as well. If you are into Java, you have the Java version, and if you are into C, some of the time these kind of applications will make more sense in languages like C, as because these programs will take a lot of resources in order to render most of the stuff, and when it is rendering and it's costing us with a lot of application memory CPU intense programs. So the cost is high compared to other normal general applications that we are building. So in order to um, get more out of the applications, rather than running typical Java or Java or Kotlin applications, it makes more sense to write these kind of applications in C or native programming support with native programming support. So native programming NDK on native development kit, we will have like some things like in C. But for normal SDKs, we will use languages like Kotlin and Java. So we'll be looking at this Hello AR in Kotlin since we are in Kotlin space. We'll be looking at that. So what I have done is I have opened the application in in my Emule in my Android Studio, and I have done nothing so much at this point, but I have changed the Gradle version that I've been using. The one with the project was a little bit old, so I had to change the Gradle version. That's it. And other than that, everything is like a fresh new clone application that I have taken. All right. So first of all, let's look at uh, look at the things that we need in terms of developing this application. First thing that you will see that it is the AR core. So AR core dependency is as you can see, it's a must. And when you're developing an AR application, but Google, when we are using the AR core, make sure you have the latest version of AR core installed within your within your phone. Also, you need to have the Google account linked into your phone. Otherwise, these things will not work as expected. So in order to work with AR applications, at least from Android's perspective, you need the AR core within dependency. And what you will need next is the um, what you need next is something like uh, uh, something like object loader. We will see what an object loader is. Simply when we are working with virtual objects, okay, we have virtual objects that we need to place. So those are in what we call OBJ files, virtual objects files. So we those application files need to be read somehow. So we'll find several virtual objects within our application, most probably under the assets. And we have several assets that we use to be used within this application. So we should have a way to load these OBJ files or object files. So in that case, we will use Java GL or BGL framework for that. And app compact, lifecycle, commands, these things are somewhat familiar. The material design, these are like the common things that you will see it in an application. And of course, you will need Kotlin and few of the stuff to get things working. So um, the main thing that is we need the AR core and we need the OBJ file loader in order to load some assets from your application, from your asset directory to your program, to your virtual application, virtual AR application. So you might be able to see some doodles around, some images around here. So this what makes the this what make the application um, the assets that we need to show something. Okay, we will put these assets in a live environment and see what kind of results that we can get. And remember, not all the objects that we see is something that we can put in here. Sometimes it is not possible. the model may be too large, or sometimes if it is too if the size is too much, we can't load that object due to a lot of object points are when there are a lot of object points, the loading part will take more time. That's because more points, more things to calculate, more memory that you will need, and probably you won't be able to handle a huge model file. The reason behind that you can't handle this huge file is when you try to load it, the application might crash, it run out of CPU, it might run out of memory. Those kind of things are quite often. So when you are selecting a model, let's make sure it is very simple and easy to add. Okay, so these are the models or the assets that we'll be basing on. So rather than let's talking about the anatomy of this application, we'll just run it first and make sure when you are running this, you have the Google Play support in here. If you do not have Google Play within your emulator, we can actually run this in emulator or in your phone if you like. Either way, when you are running it, you need to have the Google Play, uh, Google Play, Play Store, and uh, Play Store installed in your application. And next thing that you will need is that you need AR Core installed within your application. I'm not sure it is showing in here. AR Core. I think it is not showing in here, but I think I can go to settings and see whether it is installed or not. We'll go here. Let me go to settings. I recently installed it, so it should be there. Apps, under apps, see all apps. There you go. Google Play service for AR. So this one should be installed as well. Otherwise, the underlying the application itself does not get bundled with the AR Core implementation, the framework. What we are doing is from our application, we are accessing the services provided by Google Play service and AR Core, and we are using those services in order to render something in our application. So we are basically using the framework, but in order to use, you need to have it installed within your application. Otherwise, it's not easy to it won't be possible to run. So a few things: Google Play Store you should have. You should have Google Play service. Once you install Play Store, you will have the Google Play service. And the next thing is Google Play service for AR. So if you do not have this thing installed, by default, when you are trying to run this application, it will ask for the permissions and all. And if AR Core or something is not presented, they will just give you a hint to install or an error that let's say AR Core is not installed, things like that. That kind of information is given, so you do not have to worry that much about it. But these things should be there unless you want to run the application. Okay. So I have completed the application. I have at least I have imported the application and so on. What I'll do is I will run this application for now. I will have my React inspector. So I think everyone can see the emulator. Right now, the emulator is doing nothing. So to move the camera, I should press Shift. Right now, I am pressing Shift in my keyboard, and while I am doing it, you guys can see that the AR Core is doing its business. they are trying to detect a plane. If I can move around this sample room by pressing shift and move around with WASD keys, so I can look at the surface that is detected, and this is like a dummy board. This is not the actual detected surface, so we don't have to worry about that. We will look in the room, and we can move around the room just to check around what are the things available. And there's a table in here. You guys can see. I think I can move up and down. Yes, I can move up and down using the arrow keys as well. I can look around. Um, so by using the keys that we have seen in here, now you guys can see the wall has detected as a surface. Okay, the a plane. Now you guys can see it's detecting. It's using the plane detection algorithm. So it is detecting. It's not gonna be super as what you do in a mobile phone at least, but you get the idea. This is like something closer to real. So we have detected a surface in here, and it is moving. Not sure why. Virtual world is not good in immediate, it seems. Let me restart the app and see whether it's get fixed. Yeah. So it is detecting surface. Yes, it is. It has detected this vertical wall. So we can simply go in here and I can change the location. Now the surface is detected. There are several surface detection going on. So right now, if I want to place an anchor, if you want to place something in the surface that we have detected, I just have to tap on it. I just click on it. You guys can see that we have placed a uh, virtual object in here. If I go closer to this, oops, if I go closer to this, okay, the surface has gone. I will touch it again. If I go closer, I can see that there are AR core written on it, at least. So you guys can see the pose of this virtual object is that it is looking in a direction, in a in a given way. So there are like a lot of detections going on. Let me try to put another one. Now you guys can see if I go near it and try to get down, it's really hard to do it in my keyboard, and they are going. I don't know why. So the AR application which I'm trying to run, it's not that stable, at least for the emulator. Let me try to get it on my phone and see whether it works, at least. So we can see decently something there. I'm not sure whether it's work or not, but let's give it a try. So emulators are not the best friend when you are trying to uh, run an application like this, because emulators are not that user friendly when it is coming to the applications like this. Let's check whether I have my device in here. It's not showing me here. Let's see. I have to go. What is that called? Developer option. Hmm. Developer settings. Let me check. General apps. What is that called? It's called develop option, but I can't find it. Was it in the about section? Um, around. Give me a second. I'm searching still. Let me check the internet. I don't know whether they have changed. Enable developer mod Samsung S10, I think. Developer mod. I'm not sure whether they have changed it. It was like there last time. It's about phone software information. Okay. I need to go to about phone software information. Okay. I need to click on the base version if I'm not, sorry, build number. Yep, got it. Enable the developer mode. Okay, that's good. Side developer option. Do I need to enable USB debugging? Okay. Yes, it will. I will allow it, and it should show my Samsung in here. Okay, awesome. I'll deploy the application in my phone. While using this app. Scanning for surface. Okay. Let me clean up my desk a little bit, then I'll show you guys few tricks. Okay. Let me check whether it is showing good surface. It's not detecting my. Okay, it's detecting. So I'll join the lecture on my phone. Let me stop sharing. I'll use the link that I have to join from my phone. Da-da-da. Copy link address. I think should be able to join it now.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I will reduce my mic, otherwise it will echo it all around. Okay, I hope you guys can see it, and I have to share the screen, right? Share in here. I'll share my screen, start now. So I have the AR application in here, and it is trying to detect some flaws in here. I'm not sure whether, okay, you guys can see it is detecting some surface. Still not the best result that you can get from a phone. But if I tap in this location, and now you guys can see there is an object in here. Okay. The text of the service is not enough. Let me try to, okay, I have another service in here. Share. There you go. It is detecting the whole flow as much as possible. And if I tap on here, you guys can see that I have this object placed around here, and I can put more objects in the surface. And if I take my phone closer to this application, and if I take this little bit closer, now you guys can see that the pose of these each and every um, virtual objects that I have placed, it's gonna remain in that way. Okay, so if I go around it, you guys can see it is not changing its pose. The pose remains same, and it is not changing anything. And the objects that we have put, those are going to be in here. Everything in here, uh, these five, yeah, there's five objects. It's gonna stick to this surface, and these are gonna be sticked. We are using the anchor points that I have placed, and I can go around this, and still it does not change the surface. And if I scan more to my room, and if I have a good if I could have good memory and a good phone, you guys can see I can have more surveys around here. Still, my objects gonna be there. So if I go somewhere else and put another virtual objects, I have put 3 in here, and I have 5 in here. So all these virtual objects that you see, they have the anchor points to their to the correct point, and you guys can see, even though I remove, even though I change my space, these things keep the anchor points where they really and where they should be. I can have multiple things, and if I if I scatter around the room, I can still see those things. Okay, so I can zoom in here. Okay, I can see the AR core, and if I try to move my application, uh, my phone, you guys can see these things still remain within the same space. If I go a little bit behind on it, it will change, and it will if I go near that objects, those things will appear big, and if I go back, those things will appear small. So these are the technique that we have talked, the surface scanning. I don't think it is doing a good job in terms of us scanning everything. Okay, now the scan got interrupted, my space got destroyed, now nothing is here. maybe I can scan my, you guys can see my wall. It is decorated by my children. But anyhow, there is no uh, good features to be detected in here. That's because everything is in white. Okay, the program is trying to detect feature points. Now the feature points cannot be detected. Why? There is no difference in between the walls, almost look identical. There is no distinguishable features in this wall, so it cannot detect. But if I move to my floor, you guys can see there are like little blue dots appearing here and there. That is the feature detection, the feature points that it detects, and those features will give um, more information about it. And you guys can see more features, more feature points that you have, the plane detection, everything goes smooth. But if you come to a place like this, there are no features to be detected, very rare distinguishable features. So it is not going to do a good feature detection algorithm. So that's why we need these kind of algorithm, the features to have more and more items, more distinguishable items to detect something in place. Otherwise, the application will not work as expected. Okay, you can see there is two planes in detection, my desk and my floor. And if I place something in here and place something in here, those are detected as two planes. Those two planes even we have these objects and the space is accurately detected. So whenever we are uh, having such two planes, multiple planes, they are anchoring to the correct plane as well. Okay, so if I go down right around here, the anchor has changed, and if I did not destroy my other plane, it is also working and it is showing these things in here. So currently, the plane detection, feature detection is good, but remember, if you don't have something distinguishable, it will not work. But you guys can see that there is this wall, it has so many features, and it is detecting as a vertical one as well. So when I'm going in here, you guys can see it is vertically aligned, not horizontally. And since there are good features that is to be detected, the plane detection and feature detection works perfectly. But you can't expect the same from a very old plane, uh, 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 very old plane wall like this. It might detect something from here because there are like two different, yes, it's detecting some features. You can see that very small blue dots. I'm not sure whether you guys can see that precisely, but yeah, that is the feature detection in place. And I think it is trying to detect something, and there is a wrongly placed virtual object. I think that's because I clicked on somewhere, and yeah, so that's what the feature is, feature detection and everything is all about. Let me stop the Zoom sharing. So as you guys can see, uh, detecting the planes, detecting the um, features, those kind of things are a little bit tricky at this moment. Uh, I'm not saying I have the best device as of for the market. This one is a very old phone compared to latest products. So, but even with that, if you have good hardware support, you can get the things done. And probably the reason that I have used a real device, it is really painful to create to demonstrate such a thing in a virtual device. Virtual device, they do not have that much of accuracy when it is coming to when it is coming to application, running application like this, it's not always the same. So if you are concerned about the application, if you want to test these things out, please make sure you guys use a real device for at least for testing. Okay. All right. So we talked about the AR application, core concepts, uh, how it's gonna look like, and we'll just run a sample application out of the repository that we got. So any questions up until this? You guys have anything to ask? Okay. So I think the explaining the code wise, this is going to be a little bit hard. Um, it's going to be like we are talking in a lot of terms and a lot of unknown code, like what we have seen in the applications, like what we have seen so far. The um, um, reading through one of these application is little bit tricky. Okay, so it's not gonna make things easy to understand at first go. There are a lot of configurations that will go through. Okay, so I'm not expecting to go one by one in this let's see this, because these concepts for most of the part, it's better if you have a requirement and get to know. I know the basics. If you have the basics around with you, you do not need uh, you don't need that much of information to be processed. But if you are not developing an application, if you are not into the AR applications development, I do not recommend. I mean, have the basic knowledge, that is important, but it is not going to be something that you guys should look into, or it is like a must that you remember these things. Okay, let me share the screen so you guys can see the sample code. So within this application, you guys will see the things like um, the Hello AR activity. So you guys can see it's like the starting point. Um, Other than that, there will be some things like creating the AR core session, AR core view, which is this one. So there will be something called AR renderer. So we have a lot of moving parts in here, but on create, what we'll do is we will create a AR core session helper. And once the AR core session helper is created with the fallback, there will be um, a lot of things that will check by these AR core helper, like especially whether you have the latest AR core installed, whether you have you have Play services, whether you have AR core. There will be a lot of checks before you going into the application. Uh, the main reason these resources might sometimes the camera might be not available, sometimes it's It's not going to be easy to get the version of the AR core. Sometimes you are using an outdated computer. In such a scenario, what will happen is we will throw an exception. If the AR session helper is passing through and we do not have any technical issues like outdated versions or something like that, we'll go to the AR configuration session helper, and we will create a render application, and we will set up the sample. We will set up the simple renderer, and we will have the surface. Probably it's going to be a simple XML file with one activity. I think it is surface view or something like that. Let me check XML. Yes, we have this Android OpenGL surface view. So this is where the things are getting rendered out, and we have a button on the top for like changing the settings and all. But mainly the things are with this AR Android surface view. So this activity that we are seeing in here is simply gonna give the sample renderer and put it in that GL view. And a lot of things are related to light estimation, whether we have depth mode supported, whether we have instant placement supported. Like a lot of configurations are going on. I'm not gonna go through each and every things with this setup, but have the basic idea. We have to first check whether we have the correct permissions, correct setup, and the libraries are in place. If the libraries are in place, we will go and set up the session, and we will use one of the surface that is available in the XML file and project those things in there. So that is like the basics of it. Uh, if you are interested in look at this Hello AR renderer and Hello AR view, okay, it's out of the course content to go one by one and explain what it does. So right now, we need to make sure this is running as a normal Android application, but the setup is little bit different rather than a traditional SDK application. So there are several things that we need to keep in mind. That's gonna be the uh, device health, as well as the person who is operating the device. So one thing that you need to remember, that is the activity, the AR application. It's take a lot of computational power because we are using a lot of hardware in this section. While we are using the phone, especially it takes camera because it is like the input stream. Then there are like depth sensors and other sensors turning on, and your screen is gonna be always on. It's not like it's gonna turn off. That would not be possible. And your CPU, it's gonna burst into processing whatever the plane detection, surface detection, rendering. There's gonna be a lot of things happening with the CPU stuff. So at the end, your device is consuming a lot of battery power, to render these things out. That's the main reason behind it. It's because the application uh, is in full burst mode at this point. A lot of resources are being used. They are working full time. Your battery is gonna die very soon. So when we develop the application, one thing that we need to remember, say for example, we want to put we want to put we want to put the uh, resource utilization as minimal as possible. The first thing that we can do is while we are not using the application, we need to make sure the surface detection or anything that happens, anything that can be paused should be stopped. Okay, so the AR renderer, if you look at AR view, so surface view will be on pause, surface will be on resume once we execute these life cycle events. So that's kind of things should happen if you are working with the applications uh, uh, with the applications. Otherwise, what will happen is the surface will work in the background. That is something that we do not need. So what we need is the surface view to stops what they are doing when the application is going to background. That will save a lot of energy, and it will stop rendering. It might uh, do a lot of uh, memory or CPU intensive stuff in hold. So once it is resuming, make sure it is resuming back, and it will work. Okay. So and other things we need to consider when we are developing an application, the proper permissions, and user should be able to see proper error messages. Okay, that is one thing very important. Uh, so for example, if you guys can see, when I'm using the application several times, there were pop-ups saying, okay, surface detected, surface lost. So user is aware that something has gone wrong or something is missing, that kind of thing. We should always pop up and ask. And especially if you guys can remember in the activity, uh, uh, if we have depth API support within our application, okay, if we have certain API supports that we can get, we should ask the user, okay, we have the depth API support within your device. Would you like to use it? Okay. As a developer, you should detect what are the available hardware features and whether they are supported. If they are supported, you should be able to turn it on and off and use those values if necessary. So in application wise, and remember, as I mentioned earlier, the resource utilization is the most important thing. That's what I told you. Even though these applications are written in Kotlin, it's better if you guys can write this application in something like C. Uh, that's because uh, the performance, the battery that we are draining, the memory that we are trying to utilize uh, is something C is good at. But that is like the application is for. So when you are developing such AR application or something like that, consider using C, even though Kotlin or Java would work. Okay, they will not be the real performance gains that we can get, we can't get it from such high level language. We need such a low level language like C. So if you are in a place where you can use those languages, please do so. Okay, so we have the AR view, and mm, yeah, and the render is like the most important thing. So as I mentioned earlier, there is the library that will be loading the assets that we have seen in the assets directory. So we need to load these things. You guys can see on surface created method. A lot of these um, lot of these um, assets are getting loaded. Okay, I'm not 100% sure what are the use case on each and every these things, but pretty sure the model is like one of the most important, and all the other things follow along. So these things will load the associated file into our memory, and we can use within those things. So we have to make sure all the appropriated assets are loading in order to do a placement. All right. So there are like customization with light estimation, a lot of things related to anchor placements and everything. So it is not that big. It's around like 500 plus uh, code, and most of the things will be incorporated with comments as well. But you guys can check that out. Compared to other programs that we have done, this is going to be a little bit hard, that is expected. But when you get the hang around it, when you get the gist of it, I think it will make more easy. So there are like a couple of other sample applications within the same directory. You guys can check those things as well. So I'm not gonna go one by one and check everyone through. This is like the starting point for this kind of application development. All you need to know is the basics around it and what are the important factors when you are developing such application in terms of the device. And the other thing is in terms of user, how we should uh, advise the user while we are using such application. Okay, so the first thing is the focus of the user. When we get too excited, when we are trying to find a surface, when we are trying to find a nice place, so what the user will lose is the concept of reality. Okay, where they are, what they are doing. Sometimes people do not have the proper understanding or the proper knowledge while they are operating this application. They might lose focus, they might lose other things. So in order to avoid such thing, let's make sure always we inform the user about the dangers, about the usage of this application. So for example, um, in my demonstration, I was not going backwards to capture something, or if I'm not going towards something like a hill or something. But say, for example, somebody is trying to put a AR object, and to get a look better view, they are going backwards. But when they are going backwards, what happens is there can be a rock, there can be some sort of a downfall. That person might get injured if they hit the rock and fell down. If they like go back and did not see the gap, they might get injured while they are using the application. So first thing, in terms of user and user safety, health, security, or comparing all those things, so we need to make sure the that user is aware about the dangers it poses, the things that they should do and they should not do. Okay, so in example like this, what we can do is we can prompt a pop-up box or an information wizard or something similar and tell that user, hey, you are using an AR application. I know you are enjoying this, but you have to make sure your safety is the first thing that you take care of. So in this scenario, you can say, do not go back while you are using the application. Do not take any risk by going into mountains or mountain edges while you are trying to create AR filter or you are trying to place an object. So always be the responsible with the application. Make sure you have some sort of pop-up saying, at least saying AR applications are fun, but make sure you understand the environment and you are not going that far away from edges and everything and do not go back. That kind of information would certainly lead the application users more aware about it and they will have the consciousness of okay, all right, we are using an AI application, we need to be careful uh, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the user uh, giving a message to the user and we need to make sure the application is not using so much energy that it will diffuse or reduce the battery usage. It will take a lot of juice and exhaust the phone. We do not want to do that. Okay? So those are the responsibilities in terms of this side of this kind of applications because we are taking the real world and we are trying to manipulate. I mean, not manipulate it. We are trying to add something and modify it. So user will have definitely a feeling. Okay, we are in the real world, but we are not in the real world. That kind of mixed feeling can cause a lot of harm. So we should always have these things lay out for the user so they are not getting injured anyhow. Okay, so next thing we should think about is the services that they provide. So if I'm not mistaken, the surface that we are creating, it's gonna change. The surface that's we are gonna use, it's gonna change. But I have seen some projects where we saw cloud anchors. So the cloud anchors movement is something like where you will scan a place, okay, that place, unless that place is changed that much, that place will be remembered in cloud, okay, and that will be stored where uh, application from iOS and Android can use this application as they have scanned the room. So, for example, I scan this room and I upload this structure or this place for a server. And if somebody with an iPhone comes in and scan the same room, they can see the anchors that I have put. Okay, so that was like There was like the game Pokemon, if you guys can remember. I think that might be the technology that they have been using around. So they select different geofacet location and they put some Pokemons or virtual objects, and the others will come and find that. Okay, that is at least the game setup, as we can see. So uh, we will have game development and those kind of things. Those are like added things on top of the AR platforms. So we should be taking a good look at that, and the technologies behind that will be also there. Okay, so we talked about our device responsibilities and our personal responsibilities in terms of developing the applications. And yeah, the basics that we have created in this application, it's very basics and a lot of ways that we need to go, but we'll be talking only in terms of basic setup and basic stuff. All right. Anything that you guys need to get clarification on this setup? Anything that did not make more sense? Okay. All right. That means hopefully you got all the idea that that is out there. And mm, let me get a few things in place. Mm, so there are a couple of things in theory that we need to follow. Um, these are like um, these are like the enterprise related things, and we will look into this theories. Since we have completed the augmented reality stuff, we will need to look into more of the theory stuff behind these things. So I will start on that. I think I'm not gonna take that much time in these things because obviously these slides can be self-studied, but I'll go through these things so you guys have better idea on that. Let me check. Okay. All right. So these are like the things we can actually like skip even these things, but these are like mandatory things that we should know. The evolutions of the mobile computing. So we need to know about what are the portable computers. So I'm not going to go each and everything and explain to you guys, but these are like the examples. One of the portable computers back then was compact portable. You guys can see that the portability comes with, you can move the computer compared to mainframe computers at that time. They were not movable. They are like huge machines. Even today's machines like supercomputers, it's hard to move, but anything that is portable, that means that you can carry somewhere else, that we can think as a portable computer. Your laptop might be comes under the same thing. And there is like personal digital assistants, which we can think like palm devices. I'm not sure that you guys have owned anything. I had something similar to this. It has like the basic things where you can have alarm, you can have some calculations done, that's kind of basic applications. And there is ultra mobile PCs. So the PCs are really thin. Even today's market, we can see these PCs, but not that much in use in terms of desktops, and the performance is a little bit low compared to desktops. And we have, of course, the laptops. All are familiar with portable personal computers that we will see in most of the time. And there you go. We have the like things like smartphones. So I think everyone in here might be owning a smartphone. That is the new next generation of application that we need to develop. So this is kind of the era of smartphone. So we have plenty of opportunities to develop application for the smartphones nowadays. And we talked about developing the applications in detail about these platforms and all. Of course, the tablets are there. We have iPads, we have Galaxy Notes, a lot of things. It is something like expansion of mobile phones with some added features, some removed, but it is a usable computer that we can see. And next type of applications or the portable computers is the wearables. So there are like smart devices where you can wear within you. So it tells us what are the things. If you have seen, like there are glasses, there are like health application where you will see the heart rates and everything. And there you have smartwatches which combine most of the things with the heart rate monitor, and there is workout monitors and so on. So many applications built into these things. And there are like smart rings. Not sure whether you guys have seen such application, but there are like applications where you guys install RFID or something similar to the ring, and the RFID receiver receives such signal from one of these devices. They will automatically perform a task. So I've seen some people have automated their home, and once the ring owner comes near a door, the door will automatically open. You don't have to do anything. The RFID uh, between the door and the ring will work. So will work together and open the door for you. You don't have to do any key finding, or you don't have to do touching the keypad and giving a passcode. All you need is this ring, and that ring will automatically open the doors for you. So these are the wearable computers, and most of the things are like at affordable level now. So you guys can check out Watch and WatchOS applications. These are like popular these days. And the next big thing that we need to think the evolution, if we take the Internet of Things, IoTs. So IoT is playing a key role these days. Um, so IoT devices are much more popular Internet of Things. There are a lot of applications on built on top of the platforms that we can see, especially in terms of automation and things like things like self-manageable applications. For example, we have now smart fridges. Okay, so the fridge is so smart that say for example, we have some vegetables in our fridge, and what happens is when we consume the vegetables and we forget to order, the fridge will automatically detect, okay, there are some vegetables are missing, some groceries are missing, based on the things that the refrigerator can detect on the refrigerator itself. So what they will do is they will say, okay, let's say we are missing out of beverages, we are missing out of some vegetables. Based on the user's preferences, I will order some carrots and some leeks, some vegetables and everything, and also some cool beverages, some mixed fruit drinks. All these things are automatically calculated, automatically checked by the refrigerator itself. And since the refrigerator is connected to internet and they have configured in a way, the nearest local shop can receive a message saying, hey, uh, the address owner at this point, they need some groceries, they need some vegetables, they need some beverages. This is the order as per their preference. Please deliver some vegetables over there. So in a scenario like that, the user is only have to allow the transaction, or allow, sometimes they might need to allow the food items that they're gonna be ordering. So other than that, everything else, everything that fridge does is gonna be automated. Okay, so Internet of Things will provide a lot of advantages when it is come to automation. Okay, and the other things that you will find interesting are the things like um, automating your home with several or more devices connected to each other. So, for example, I have a refrigerator, and that refrigerator things. Sorry, not a refrigerator. Let's take something else. Okay. Um, I have an air conditioner which is connected to the, let's say, our smart washing machine. Okay, so we can tell the washing machine and the AC to work with each other at a given time. Okay, so let's say for example, turn on washing machine at 10 o'clock and turn on AC at 11 o'clock. That kind of automation is available. Um, so all of these things, all of these applications will be working with electronical devices that is plugged into the core of the device. So for example, the fridge will have some sensors and it will have some IoT based devices which will help to take these kind of decisions. So all the devices that we can think of today will be automatically can be automatically connected to internet, and those things will act upon without even our knowledge. Most of the time, if it is like uh, involved with money and all, we can ask for the permission. Okay, if you want something, you have to ask me before you buy. You have to ask me. That kind of things is okay. But other than that, Internet of Things can automate a lot of things for you, and the beauty of the Internet of Things is most of the devices that is set up, those can talk to each other to take decisions. So for example, Let's say something like a user is coming to home. While the user is coming to home, the AC should be at a given temperature, and the and some vegetables to be boiled or some tea to be made. So the kettle should be start making some hot water. So whenever we have a smartphone or something like that, whenever we are nearing to our home, these things can be automated. The phone can be act as a source of where the user is, and the phone applications that we have can send a message to the washing machine saying, the air conditioner, the user is coming, warm up here, cool up or warm up the home. And the kettle to have a message saying, okay, the owner is coming, we might need to prepare some hot water to prepare some tea or something like that. So Internet of Things will is something that taken world by storm, and a lot of industrial automation also happen in Internet of Things, and the communications that we need to do in Internet of Things happens most of the time over the internet. I'm not sure whether you guys have seen there are like devices that you can play around if you are interested in developing IoT applications. So I have some of the circuitries that provide these kind of functionalities. Let me show you few examples. Uh, device. So in your here, anyone here have play around with things like PCB boards or some applications like Arduino or something like that? Do you guys have any experience? Anyone have played around with those things? Raise your hand if you have played around Arduino or something similar. Nobody? Okay. So I'm not sure whether you guys have seen these type of devices. Um, so let me show you few. Okay. Great. So yeah. So I have one of the testing boards that is out there. This one is called NodMCU. One of the cheapest one that you can find in the internet. So this is the chip which control the flow of the application. We can put a little program in here and we can automate a lot of things. So currently there are few applications that I have developed in my house, which is like automating lights and some utilities in my house. So based on the time, based on the electricity of availability of electricity, this chip will take a decision whether to turn on some lights or not. Okay, so these kind of chips, this is actually a development board. That means this is not the actual thing that go to production. To test our application, to run our application, we have these connectors that we can connect and we can test the applications. So once you are done testing, you can use one of these chips. Okay, this is like the main board that you have seen over there, and it has these small I'm not sure whether you guys can see. There is like small points where you can give the inputs and outputs, where you have to shoulder it with a bout and some some LED on it, and you can use this device as a computer. Okay, it's not going to be running like a GPU or something, but it's helped us to run small applications, some automated applications where you can play around with these things. Okay, so I think this was around 200 rupees when I was buying, but now I think the inflation has hit and it's almost like 1,000 for one of these things. But you can play around with this application. But to get started, I would recommend something like a development board that we see in here. So very easy to learn, very fun. I have developed a few applications for my home and for some uh, plus few of the clients that I have met. So they have interesting ideas like automating some sales numbers. They have some things like showing some messages to the people, and there was one application where the truck drivers get a notification from their boss and they don't need a smartphone or anything. They have this small device connected to a smaller display and they get a lot of information on that. So that's kind of interesting thing. So you have there are a lot of applications that you can develop on. And if you want something more powerful, you can always buy things like mini computers like this. Okay, this is a computer. This one is called Raspberry Pi Zero. It runs its things in this SD card. You can see where you can store Raspberry Pi OS, and it is working like a normal computer. Something similar to we can say something similar to your smartphone. We do not have like a display or something like that, but there are like display ports, there is charging ports and everything. We can test the application around and see whether it is working. So these kind of fun applications, these kind of devices will give us uh, more, uh, more uh, uh, more control over our Internet of Things and applications that we can develop. So you can see how small these devices are, and literally they can automate a whole house or some task without an issue. And they need very little amount of power. If I'm not mistaken, 5 volts or something like that. You can power it by a USB device, and it still works like a charm. And these devices, most of the time, depending on what is the task that you want to provide, you can create Internet of Things. There are like several application or hardware providers out there. Like I have shown you a Node MCU, commonly known as ESP32, and there are a lot of IoT enabled devices that we can do. So you guys, if you're interested in, we can program some of those things. If you're interested in, please let me know so we can check that out. It's really fun to work with something like something we like a mobile application. It is like tangible output is there, so it is very fun to work with. So one thing with the Internet of Things, there are several several things that we need to think in terms of Internet of Things, how it is usage. The first thing is security. Okay, so the security wise, if somebody have access to your network, if you have somebody access to your refrigerator, they can do damages. Okay, for some reason, for some reason, if somebody take control of your home security system or something similar, then you will be in a lot of trouble when it is coming to these IoT devices placed on your home. So we have to be very careful with the security, uh, what sort of permissions that we give and what sort of things that we are not allowing to do, and whether we are regularly updating the patch versions of the applications, patch OS updates, security updates, those kind of things. We need to always think about those, like the the applications that we are running, the Node.mcu or ESP32 applications that we had, they have something called a ROM, read-only access, read-only memory or something like that. That means that is where the operating system lies. And believe me that the device that I have shown, it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities. So you don't need any extra devices for connecting to you connecting to internet. The built-in Wi-Fi, you can utilize it for anything else. So with those things mind, there are security we need to think about with the security, and whether it is working on a with the Wi-Fi stuff, with the Bluetooth, and we have to be very careful on that. So one fun thing that I did while I was working somewhere with these devices, what I could do with that Node MCU, the chip that I had in mind, I can connect to Wi-Fi networks. Also, I can create Wi-Fi networks. I can create a Wi-Fi network so anyone else can connect. So if I create a Wi-Fi network with the same name of the company which the time they were using, I created the same network, and if I give the password for that, the same password as my office, so I can see the people trying to connect to my Wi-Fi. Okay, they will try to connect to Wi-Fi and they will succeed. The name is something, name is similar, and the password is the same. So people can come and join it. Okay. So sometimes people see a network, are they asking for password? They will just think, okay, something has wrong. I have to enter the password, and they can connect to that network. And whatever they are doing, I can see the packets going here and there, whatever the web traffic that they are doing. I can monitor even those things. So that kind of thing is possible. And the security wise, what we need to do is we need to be very careful um, whether we are not disrupting anything else or something like that. Also, the also the device that I have shown, they can create Wi-Fi spot, and they can create thousands of Wi-Fi spots. Not only one, they can create thousands. And the people will get lost which one to connect. The legitimate one will be one of them things, and they do not have a way to connect to the legit one. They will be blocked. So sometimes the whole area can be blocked if we give the SS, if you give the Wi-Fi name as one of the available. So there are a lot of harmful things that we can do. Fortunately, I did not mean to harm anyone. No, I did not harm anyone actually. It was like educational purposely. Then I gave a report on this. These kind of things can happen. So we should focus on fixing these things early, and it was done as well. So penetration wise, I did a good thing, like without exposing anything. I just aware the people, okay, these kind of things are there. Do not fall for that. If a real attacker comes, they will steal our data. They will steal a lot of things. So so how do we protect our devices? And how do we make sure the internet is at least somewhat safe in terms of these things? Sorry. So one thing that we need to do, as I mentioned earlier, even we need to have the latest security patches, latest security um, updates as much as possible. So we know, okay, our device is at least safe uh, known threats. They are patched up. And the next thing is, of course, we will need to use secure application communication channels. So, like encrypted ones for communicating, of course, we can use SSL. We do not want to communicate in plain. So, we need to have security from software side that's preventing other users from accessing our data. So, the best way that we can do is the use of security features such as that. So that is one thing. And the next thing is communication encryption. Okay, most of the time, the data that we are sending, if we can encrypt those things or hash those things so the others can't detect, that is the best, one of the best things that we can do in order to secure our communications. And the next thing, in terms of security, we do not want to have a uh, very weak password. If you are taking these things seriously, use a really good password with mixed characters and all. There might be good password policies that you can find out there. Maybe you want to use one of those things to enforce a good password. So that's kind of things that we can do in terms of securing our application. And next thing is what Internet of Things is their communication. Communication is something that we should worry or something we should focus on. So when it is coming to Internet of Things, as I mentioned earlier, these devices, these applications, they use a very little amount of memory, and they have very little amount of processing power. Processing power is not something that that we have like a machine that we are seeing in front of you, like with the GPU and high clock speed. They are very simple, very simple machines with a lot of the time it is going to be a serial computer. They will not even perform multi-threaded task or something like that, or parallel task. They will like execute the program in a linear manner. That's it. Okay. So the communication mechanism is one of the most important thing that we need to be considered. So the payload should be less, and the application should have a good way, a good protocol for communication. So most of the Internet of Things, to mitigate a lot of these issues, they use what we call uh, communication protocol called MQTT. Okay, so the MQTT is one of the most popular communication mechanism out there. It is something like a bidirectional uh, communicating protocol. So we can send the message as well as we can receive message with a single connection. So it is something similar to WebSockets. If you guys know WebSocket, we have two-way direction, and we can talk to each other with WebSockets and all. So we can have something. The protocol is something similar, but it is very lightweight compared to WebSocket. So there will be one single connection, and that connection will send the message and receive the message, and the message format will be different. So you guys will see some of the things that is done, the communication most of the time with IoT devices is done by MQTT. Okay, so those are the applications. So we talk about security, we talk about communication, we talk about the applications IoT can have, and what else? And potentially, the IoT market is something still rising up. Okay, apart from the home automations, apart from the organizational like huge company automations, uh, there are still things missing with IoT. There are a lot of areas or a lot of industries that we can do automation on. So if you are interested in uh, learning the automation platforms, learning something like IoT, take a small development board and do some Arduino programming. It's basically written in C, but you will find that is really easy. There is only two methods that we need to override, and the programs works. And a lot of libraries available out there for common things like like I mentioned, the MQTT communication protocol, client or server, and WebSocket, web servers, whatever you need, you will find a solution there. So don't worry about uh, getting things started. It's really interesting and really fun to work with. So you guys will get a good idea on these things while you are working with the development board. Okay. If you need any help, I might be able to give some pointers, but it's really easy and straightforward to start with. Okay, so we talked about the usage of Internet things. So you guys should look more into what are the other use cases of Internet of Things. There are industries like medicine, there are industries like transportation, uh, then movies or entertainment. A lot of these things can help with this type of applications or this type of um, technologies. Okay, so you guys take a look what are the fields or areas we can tap on and do a research on those those areas, whether it is feasible to apply Internet of Things or is the cost is a problem or some kind of thing. Most of the time the cost is very cheap compared to other things. Only thing is we need to have a proper device that we can work with. I would recommend a Note 32 if you guys are interested in. They have Wi-Fi, they have Bluetooth, and uh, pick something up and just if you can develop it, it would be like really fun, really easy to do. Okay, we will we'll we talked about the future and we talked about the past, how it was and how it will be there, and Internet of Things. And um, next section would be a few more theories. Mobile computing in terms of mobile computing, how mobile computing is like categorized, what are the things it will take into what are the base or building blocks for mobile computing. So we have hardware, we have software, we have communication. So most of the time we talk during this lecture is about software. Okay, but the other two, that why we did not talk in that much detail, the hardware and communication, these it's because all the other two is like a little bit of out of our hand. We do not have capability of creating hardware. The practical side, it is very less if you try to go into there. But communication is also there, the communication protocols and everything we can't define, but we can use, and that's a plus point. And software, I think we have looked into more into the application development, how those applications are architect, how these things are operating, what are the things that we can work on. So we did a thorough, uh, in, uh, we worked thoroughly on the software architecture and everything. So all these things, three things come together, and it will make us a mobile computing ecosystem, mobile computing platform. Okay, so these mobile computing platforms will help us to create a more diverse application, and uh, these are like three small pillars, if I may say, about mobile computing. Um, So I'm not going to go through each and slide. Just you guys will have time to read about the in more detail. But in basic terms, communication is like the infrastructure or the technology behind transferring data from one device to another. Uh, so there are like things that we should know is like uh, uh, protocols and services, bandwidth, and uh, based on those few things, few technological things, we can create a communication. So, for example, if you are using your browser, the protocol that you are using to transfer data is called what we call the TCP or TCP architecture, but the protocol is actually HTTP or HTTPS. We use the TCP communication mechanism to send data using HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, so there are a lot of communication related technologies. I think most of the things you will be encountered as before. And uh, so some challenges with the communications. Uh, Most of the time, the infrastructure for the communication, the cost is comparatively high. So you have very high very rapidly moving application or very rapidly moving environment. So in this environment, a lot of innovations comes. So if you guys can remember, we had the 2G era, 3G, then along 4G. Now we are talking about 5G. So there are a lot of communication mechanisms comes, but in order to cater all those mechanisms, the communications, there might be the infrastructural problems. Right now, 5G is the most speed transfer communication protocol that we can see. I heard there is 6G, but it is not official or is still not um, developing uh, or using the 6G in commercial use. So currently we have communication mechanisms like 2G, 3G, 4G, and some available places there will be 5G as well. So uh, in a scenario like that, um, uh, the infrastructure costs that will take uh, infrastructure cost that will take to set up this communication mechanism is very high. Okay, so you guys can see that 5G came along, but the adaptation to 5G, it will take some time because we have to set up the routers and we have to set up the towers and everything. And even 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 with the even with the uh, uh, mobile connectivity that we have, it's not easy to serve everywhere. For example, 4G coverage is huge right now if you compare to 5G, and the area it covers is also huge, and um, uh, the uh, amount of the amount of what we call access points is for 5G is a little bit higher. So to give the uninterrupted connectivity, the 5G have a smaller uh, uh, 5G 5G connectivity 5G connectivity to give them the speed that they want. The amount of access point should be very close in proximity. So in a scenario like that, we need a lot of access point in very short distance. So in a scenario like that, we need a lot of computational powers, and sorry, we need more devices which in small ranges, and um, the electricity that's going for those things, the equipment that we need to buy is something is very um, um, it's something we need to be very precise about, that we need whether we have capabilities to have this infrastructure. That is something we need to think about. Okay, even countries like very developed ones, they will not go into 5G at full speed for sure. Where I am living at, I will not definitely get. I will definitely not get 5G in here because the density of the people that where I am living is very less. Okay, but a place where like a city or a park or somewhere high dense people, I think the 5G is making a good impact. But where I live, I think I have to either go with a 4G, which is available right now, or a wired connection that would make the things easier to do. And remember, the cost and everything is not gonna be something out of the investment that we need to put is high, but the return might be huge. So the communication protocols like 4G, they are thrive at this moment. Okay, but when you after a little bit time, of course, at least people who are living in cities will get 5G, and it will make things uh, easy for us, and will be things will be much more in in a way where those things will improve our quality of life. Okay, so there are plus things about the cost coverage, and there are negative things like cost coverage and etc. But there are plus points, the speed and time that it saves. It is something different. Okay, we need to have a balance with the communication, how it does, how it evolves, and those kind of things. Of course, there will be the plain old way of communicating, the wired one, that is going to be like not only copper wire I'm talking about things like fiber optics, and those type of communication mechanisms. Those things going to be there, but uh, depending on the cost and everything, it's gonna take some time to lay out the infrastructure. And I think most of the time, the infrastructure that we will be having um, is gonna be something hybrid, like so you won't find like 4G everywhere, 5G everywhere. At least the communication from Colombo to where I live, at least Kandy Matale, those kind of thing places we will have like wired connection. Then they will for people who can't reach, they will have 4G towers and all those things to do the other type of communication. So that kind of things is there where we have the communication, at least some sort of communication to talk to each other. Okay, so most of the mobile technologies that we are using heavily depend on communication. If communication is not there, most of the time the applications won't even work. For example, if you take applications like social media, it's heavily depend on network. If you do not have the communication, the phone is just going to show you some whole bunch of stuff, or you will say no connectivity, you can't do that. Something like sometimes offline mapping solutions work. So you have put your destination and you can go, but it will not give you the latest update on the blocks and everything. You won't get any real-time updates on that, as well as the communication wise. If you're not connected to internet, probably your smartphone will be useless at this point. So communication with each other is communication, at least with the other phones, is way more important compared to other protocols. So communication is one of the key things that we need to do. And one other thing is um, when we are communicating, the uh, the application payload that should be much smaller as possible. For some applications, the communication is, let's say, we are living in an area where we have 3G or 2G. In such a case, you can't have application consuming like plenty of data, and you can't send gigabytes of worth application, send upload this kind of things. So uh, the thing within communication is we need to always think about the payload, how much data that we're going to consume through this connection, how much data that we're going to send, and how we can compress it if it is available. That kind of thinking should be the within this protocol. So we know, okay, while we are communicating, we are doing it in an optimal way. Okay, so the communication wise, we should think about security protocols, pros and cons, and the payload that we are going to be sending. Okay, so these are the key parts, key things we should know about the communication. Anything related to communication you guys need help with? Any explanations? Anything to add? Perhaps I missed something. Okay, let's move on. So the next thing that we need to think about is the hardware. So um, the hardware is playing really important part. I know without the hardware, we can't run the software or anything like that. We are pretty much useless without the hardware and hardware capabilities. Okay, so uh, we have the we have the um, we have the basic infrastructure in terms of communicating. So um, as we have seen, the hardware side of this communication cycle, we have plenty of things in terms of hardware. So we have the hardware devices for communications like 4G routers, 5G routers, cabling, and there will be network routers, switches, those kind of all the things are related to communication. There will be hardware devices on that side. And we will have uh, mobile phones, which they have screens, they have processors, they have a lot of information. There are a lot of uh, circuitry inside. So those things will have a different sections or different uh, different section on this application. So hardware in that side will have like pretty much impact on that. So one other thing that we need to make sure when we are using hardware and the technologies behind the hardware getting way more advanced as we speak. So the if you take the consideration of sorry, if you take the consideration of CPUs, we originally we had like very small serial computers with one or two chips. Right now, the applications that we are developing, the smartphones that we are having, they have a lot of computational power. Um, uh, and they have a lot of integrated circuits, CPUs or GPUs, which we even did not had. They had like 10 years ago. The acceleratement of hardware for smartphone and smart devices was breaking some even the laws that we have put in computing. Okay, so we have capabilities that we are using uh, in our hand that we are not even using. So there was a reference. I'm not sure. I can remember like your smartphone right now, what you are having. It had the same capabilities or less capabilities when people were trying to go to the moon. Okay, when uh, NASA NASA when NASA is trying to send people to moon, they had they had the computation power. Um, they had the computation power at that time, and the same computation power, or even more, or maybe 1,000 times even better, in on top of your palm right now as a smartphone. So think how much computing power compared to the older world we have right now, and what sort of things that we can achieve, that we can do. So yeah, anyone here have the idea of what is difference between a CPU and a GPU? So that's like one thing that we need to speak. I have I know CPU and the GPU difference. What is difference between that? Raise your hand, please. Okay. So who have here the heard term GPU? I know. Okay, I know the GPU. Who have here heard about it? GPU. Nobody have heard about GPUs. Raise your hand, please, if you know what the GPU is. Nobody knows a GPU. Tarindu, Nadishani, just don't know what a GPU is. Okay. What do you understand by a GPU, Tarindu? What's it stand for at least? Sorry. GPU. Yes. GPU stand for graphical processing unit. So most of the time, GPU uh, GPU will do some uh, some some tasks, but those tasks will be same. Sorry, the GPU will work on a different data set, but they will be working in one single instruction. So that is the difference between what is the GPU's capabilities are. So anyone here anyone here knows what is the use case of a GPU? Why do we need GPUs? So we have our phones with us, and when they market, they say there is a bionic GPU, there is a CPU. So why do we need a CPU and a GPU in the first place? What what makes the difference? Anyone knows why do we have a CPU as well as a GPU? Both are going to do the computational task. GPU is going to do the computation. CPU is also going to do computation. So why do we need both? Anyone knows? So what about you, Hasim, Dinishka, Vidush, Dinuka? Any ideas why do we need both CPU and a GPU? What's the difference that we are trying to make? So uh, let's take it as a small assignment for you guys. So let's figure out what is the difference between a CPU and a GPU, and why do we need uh, that kind of thing. So I will be expecting that by tomorrow. It's a small task, that's why. Um, um, we need to know CPU versus GPU. I'm typing. CPU versus GPU. What's the differ? Compare and contrast. Um, not I got one answer. Like CPU handle all the main functions and GPU are running smaller tasks. Mm, nope, not acceptable answer on that point. GPU for managed computer graphics and CPU for processing performance. Nope, that is somewhat okay, but not the 100% correct answer in this scenario. Uh, GPU is not only for managing graphics, there are a lot more other use cases as well. If you know, things like mining, Bitcoin mining, if you have heard, or you can say mining for things. It is not graphical processing; it's just mathematics, executing things in a GPU. So it's not all about computer graphics, and GPU is running for smaller tasks. No, GPU is not running smaller tasks. It is running way more better, way more, way more things than a CPU, but in a different way. So compare and contrast. Due date will be tomorrow. Okay, so till tomorrow evening, you guys have the time. It's gonna be a short one, okay? Do not make it huge one. Just collect the answers, and I don't mind like 1 page thing. That would be fine. So just know the difference between a CPU and a GPU. The execution of task um, is the main difference. Okay. uh, how they execute instruction and what they are executing, that's the main difference, main change both the CPU and GPU have. So um, it's 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 a good thing that you know what makes a GPU. uh, it's a good thing that you guys know the things about the GPU. uh, and it is and it's gonna be something interesting what you can do with your phone by using the two different technologies. Okay, so nowadays most of the phones like iPhones what we see, they promote it for better graphics and better things, but for other things we can use the GPU. And of course GPU started as graphical processing. If you guys know, there's a GPU unit where you will accelerate your graphics, but uh, till from that day onwards, like after we have so much use case for graphical units, it's exploded in areas like mining, AI, those kind of things are blooming with GPU introduction and usage of GPUs. So have a look around the GPU and its use case. Okay, let's see tomorrow how it goes with the introduction, like the things you will learn in GPU and CPU. All right, the other hardware parts that we need to work on really is the special things like screens, and there are things like batteries. It's coming as hardware implementation. So the technologies is getting better and better, developing batteries, developing PCB boards, developing cameras, developing sensors and everything. But there are like certain limitations at this point in terms of battery discoveries. There are like certain limitation with storage, how much battery power that we can put in, and the life cycle of the battery, those kind of things are like really important um, at the given time. So we have this amount of milliamperes batteries and that amount of milliamperes batteries. They are getting smaller every day, but not compared to other technologies. Battery technologies are a little bit lagging behind. But compared to like 5 6 years ago, it is have done a drastic improvements. Other technologies like PCB, they are getting more compact and compact. A lot of things are compact into a small device like phone. And there are things like screen, which is getting closer and closer to nice views or nice pixel ratio. And there are things like camera, which is improving day by day, use of hardware contents. So these things will definitely improve the phone and it is hardware. But in terms of communication, there will be like modems and routers will built on to these phones and things, which it also helps. Uh, the problem with hardware is uh, the efficiency of hardware matters, which is one of the important things. Most of the time, when we get a new product, a mobile device or something like that, it's compare like it is this amount of energy efficient, is this amount of processing power is added. Likewise, it is going up, but there are like caveats on that as well. And the next big problem with hardware is the recyclability. Okay, whether uh, the hardware that we are seeing is recyclable, and there are a lot of movements going on with the hardware, whether they are coming from legitimate source, the raw materials. There is like most of these hardware use rare earth metals, which is uh, by mining these things will cause a lot of issues. Okay, a lot of environmental issues. So if you are not reusing, uh, repurposing these hardware materials, then there will be environmental issues that we need to we face. Okay, there will be climate crisis. There will be huge implication for the future generation. So we have to be responsible on how we're gonna use this hardware and what sort of actions that we take in order to preserve for this future generation. So we need to have that pros and cons in terms of developing these things. When we are working with these things, do not do not think that buying a phone per year that will make things easy. It has impact on the environment, so we have to be very careful on what we are doing as a responsible person. So hardware is one of the greatest thing that accelerate our environment, but the problem is whether we are responsible enough to do the right thing. Okay, and of course. We talked about software on operating system and the applications that we are running on. So operating systems and everything, those are the most common thing that you will find in an application. So right now, right now when we are talking about the software side, it's like the gold rush for the 21st century. All the applications that we are running on, all the things that we are working with it is running on one way or another on a mobile or a desktop software. So in mobile computing, the operating system plays a big role, and those things will have a big impact as well. So uh, we have learned the basic of developing applications, and we have developed uh, uh, some uh, very what do you call innovative applications. So, for example, we have things like what do you call AR applications. Uh, we have things like what do you call the AI applications, and we have a lot of things in between and encryption, those kind of things. So in software, we will develop plenty of things on top of the two foundational levels, the hardware and communication. So software is like a very dependent section on the both two foundational things, but we can consider it as a pair because without the software, the hardware and communication might not be that much useful. So when we are developing softwares and the ethics behind it, you guys also should consider. Uh, so as I mentioned earlier, the software should be in the best quality as it should be. The performance, um, all the best security practices, application development architectures, like we have talked. So all those things should be in the best condition as much as possible. So uh, we are talking about application level, but OS level we might not get a chance to work in that much. But if we have a chance, I mean, the most important thing is performance and security. So we have to be very careful on how we work with security and uh, performance of an application. We'll talk in detail about security because that is like one of the major things that we need to think about when we are developing application. So we'll look into software security for mobile, but in general, we should take a closer look in software security as good programmers. Okay, and uh, most of the time, resource utilization, as we talked in the AR application as well. We should not exhaust the uh, underlying resources, especially with the hardware. We should not utilize the battery life, the processing. Those are like key components that other application might be working on. So when we are developing application, we need to always look on performance monitoring, how we can do performance analyzing, and how to build better software based on those profiles and everything. So we will take some time to profile an application and see what sort of things that we can do better, what sort of things that that will make things way more easy, and what sort of things that we should improve upon, especially memory utilization and CPU utilization. So software is one of the main thing in this scenario, and the responsibilities a lot of time is coming to the developer. And ethically, we should think about the utilization, not the utilization, but the ethical part of software, like whether this will be harmful to someone else. That's kind of things. In general, we should think about in any software, like we have to think about security. We have to think about the application development process and so on and so on. So that is something that we will be taking a good look at. Okay. Next thing we'll be talking about um, mobile ecosystems. Okay, so these things I will just go on as much fast as possible. So when we are developing an application, it's not all about software. It's not all about always the software. Uh, Software is developed and we know everything. That's not it. So there are other people who are involving in this journey. Like when we are talking about mobile computing and all those things, there are sub ecosystems which helps us to come where we are. First of all, the manufacturers they where they develop hardware components. Okay, so when it is coming to developing things like displays, GSM modules, and processors. So those are the manufacturers who are doing these things. So Samsung, Foxconn, those are like one of the examples. And if I'm not mistaken, I have heard that the only company in the world that can produce a smartphone by themselves is only Samsung, because they have all the things in within there. So it's a big company, and we have to think about these manufacturers and all those guys in within this ecosystem. And we have like the carriers or the networks, so where they do the communication. Um, so they give us the platform with the communication. So we can't actually work without these carriers for networking. So they will provide 3G, 5G, whatever. In Sri Lanka, we have Mobitel, Dialog, Airtel, Hutch, those kind of carriers all over there. There are good ones, there are bad ones, but we are stuck with either one of those things. So at least they are giving some sort of service with communication. So we need to think about the carriers and networks. So then there is the mobile store. So uh, after we create an application, yes, we need to share this application with the world. So when it is time to share this, most probably time the iOS will have App Store, and for Google and Android application, we have Google Play Store, where we will share our application. Of course, in Android, we can share the application on other places as well, like Galaxy Store, and there are several implementation of such. But in Apple, you will find on the App Store where you can find some applications to be downloaded, and there's a good reason that you should get uh, these mobile applications on these stores, because first of all, the security. Most of the time, these stores scan for security vulnerabilities. If there are any malicious software within these stores, they will kick out if there is anything else. You will find some applications to be downloaded from internet. We can't trust the source. They can be malicious softwares inside that. So it's always better to get the from the legit source where we can trust the applications are not malicious in any way. And next thing is we need to talk about the sales models. They have like of course they're going to be taking a cut off what we are selling, what of the in-store purchases, those kind of things. But they provide the platform for us to operate. That's something, and we can be we can we have to pay a small amount of money to retain that service. And there are like framework developers, like cross-platform tools for mobile and web. We have Flutter, React Native, Inox, Xamarin. So things come and go. I think uh, there are like huge, huge marketplace for things like Flutter and React Native. Inox, Xamarin. There are some what do you call space for that, but not as the big league. So, and these framework developers help us in a lot of way to develop cross-platform application, and not only cross-platform tools, but there are things like if you take the consideration of ARCo, ARKit, those are also frameworks, but they are trying to give us something different, not like a whole application development, but at least we get some sort of help with developing AR applications or ARKit application. Even other frameworks are still merging, like game development and all those things. It's still out there, and those are also considered as framework developers, which will make the development easy at some extent. We can take library development in a way, but not as a framework. So library is giving only a small perspective of support, but in a framework you get some defined constraints from there, and from some of the applications constraints and support, and they'll be structured for a framework. But library, most of the time, they provide support for some certain task, and there might be sometimes things like they will help with, but not that much. Okay, let's talk about the other one. Okay, I think we talked about the MVVM architecture in detail. So we can skip, and I think we need to talk in mobile in cloud, Firebase and authentication. We will look into this. I think we have done some things, but we'll be talking in more details with this on upcoming lectures. Okay. So now we'll just park on these things. We have talked about augmented reality, and we have several few slides to go with theories. I'm not like really fond of going with these lecture sites, but these things we should know at least when we are working with this thing. All right. Anything else that you guys need to know about these things? Anything to be cleared? Okay. Let me stop sharing and stop recording.